The cold night wind swept across the Afghan mountains as Marine Sergeant Jack Chen walked his patrol route. His boots made soft crunches in the rocky ground as he moved through the darkness. After 6 years in the Marines, night patrols felt as natural as breathing to him. The moon hung high in the sky, casting long shadows across the empty valley. Jack checked his watch. 2:30 a.m. Just 3 more hours until his patrol ended. He touched the radio on his vest, making sure it was still working. Everything was quiet tonight. Too quiet. Even the usual night birds weren't making any sounds. Suddenly, a strange blue light flashed across the sky. Jack stopped walking and looked up. This wasn't normal. It wasn't a flare, and it definitely wasn't a shooting star. The light grew bigger and brighter. "Base, this is Sergeant Chen." Jack spoke into his radio. "I'm seeing some weird lights in Sector 7. Over." Only static answered him. That wasn't right. The radio had been working perfectly just minutes ago. The blue light got even brighter, and now Jack could see something massive moving behind the clouds. His training kicked in, and he quickly moved towards some nearby rocks for cover. The thing in the sky was bigger than any aircraft he had ever seen. "Base, do you copy?" Jack tried the radio again. Still nothing but static. The massive shape dropped below the clouds, and Jack's mouth fell open. It was like something out of a science fiction movie. A huge metal ship, at least the size of a football field, floating silently in the air. Strange lights blinked along its sides, and it seemed to block out the stars themselves. Jack's hands didn't shake as he pulled out his phone to take a video. Someone needed to see this. But before he could press record, a bright beam of light shot down from the ship, hitting the ground just 50 feet away from him. The Marine's training took over. He dropped to the ground and rolled behind a large boulder, his rifle ready. He'd been in firefights before, but this was different. This was impossible. The beam of light started moving, sweeping across the ground like a searchlight. Jack knew he needed to get back to base and warn everyone. He waited until the beam moved past him, then sprinted toward the next piece of cover. That's when everything went wrong. A second beam, this one green, hit him directly. Jack tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. It felt like he was frozen in ice, but he could still think and see. The green light lifted him off the ground. As he floated upward, Jack's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Aliens weren't real. This had to be some kind of trick, maybe a new weapon being tested. But deep down, he knew better. Through the green light, he saw figures moving at the edge of the ship's opening. They weren't human. Their bodies were too tall, too thin, and they moved in a way that nothing on Earth moved. "You're making a big mistake," Jack said through clenched teeth, even though they probably couldn't hear him. The aliens pulled him into their ship. Up close, they looked even stranger, gray skin, long fingers, and huge black eyes that seemed to stare right through him. They wore some kind of armor that glowed softly in the dim light. One of them reached toward Jack with something that looked like a needle. He tried to fight, but the green light still held him tight. The needle touched his neck, and everything started to go dark. But before he passed out, Jack noticed something important. The door they had brought him through had a simple locking mechanism. It wasn't that different from doors he'd seen on Earth. And more importantly, he saw how it worked. As his eyes closed, a small smile crossed Jack's face. These aliens might think they had caught an easy target, but they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They hadn't captured some helpless victim. They had caught a United States Marine. And if there was one thing Marines were good at, it was getting out of tough situations. The last thing Jack thought before everything went black was that these aliens were about to learn a very important lesson about humans. Never corner a warrior who has nothing left to lose. Jack woke up strapped to a cold metal table. His head felt heavy, but his Marine training helped him stay calm. Instead of panicking, he kept his eyes nearly closed, just open enough to see while pretending to be unconscious. This was a trick he'd learned in survival training, and now it was going to help him survive something no Marine had trained for. The laboratory around him looked like something from a nightmare. Strange machines blinked with colored lights. Weird tools hung from the ceiling. Through his barely open eyes, Jack counted 4 aliens moving around him. They were even stranger in the bright light. Their gray skin seemed to shimmer like fish scales, and their long fingers had an extra joint. Subject shows unusual muscle density, one alien said in a high-pitched voice that sounded like whistling wind. Jack almost jumped in surprise. He could understand them. Their words came out as strange sounds, but somehow their meaning appeared in his mind. They must have done something to him while he was unconscious. Another alien moved closer, holding something that looked like a glowing tablet. These readings cannot be correct. Its bone structure is twice as dense as our strongest warriors. And look at these brain patterns, far more active than our previous specimens. Jack fought to keep still as they pressed cold instruments against his skin. Inside, his mind was racing. They thought they were studying him, but he was studying them right back. Every move they made, every tool they used, he memorized it all. Administer the strength test, the tallest alien commanded. One of them pressed a small device against Jack's arm. It felt like 1,000 needles hitting at once. Any normal person would have screamed, but Jack had been through worse. He only allowed his finger to twitch slightly, just enough to make them think he was still unconscious. Remarkable, the alien with the tablet exclaimed. It's suppressing pain signals that would incapacitate most species. Perhaps we should increase the test level. No, the tall one said. We don't want to damage it before the neural extraction. This one is different from the others. Look how it survived the transit beam without internal damage. The High Command will want this specimen intact. Neural extraction. Jack didn't like the sound of that. He watched through his eyelashes as they prepared more equipment. A large machine lowered from the ceiling, its tip glowing with an ominous red light. Begin brain wave mapping, one alien said. We need to understand how these humans resist our control signals. That was interesting information. So their technology didn't work right on humans. Jack filed that away for later. The aliens moved to a control panel across the room, their backs turned to him. This was his chance. Jack flexed his muscles against the straps, holding him down. They were strong, but they had made a crucial mistake. They had designed these restraints for their own kind. Thin, delicate aliens. They weren't ready for human strength. With one explosive movement, Jack snapped the strap on his right arm. The aliens spun around, their huge eyes growing even wider. Before they could react, he had freed his other arm and was working on the leg restraints. Impossible, the tall alien shouted. Activate the paralysis field. One alien rushed to press a button on the wall. A blue light filled the room, but Jack kept moving. He remembered what they had said. Their technology didn't work right on humans. The paralysis field only slowed him down a little as he ripped free of the last strap. The aliens backed away in fear as Jack stood up. He grabbed the nearest piece of equipment, the tablet they had been using to study him, and threw it at the control panel. Sparks flew as it smashed into the alien technology. Security breach in Laboratory 7. One alien screamed into a communication device. The human is loose. Send. Jack didn't let him finish. He charged forward and tackled the alien, surprised at how light they were. It felt like hitting a child. He made sure not to hurt them too badly as he pushed them aside. He didn't want to kill anyone. He just needed to escape. As alarms began blaring through the ship, Jack ran to the laboratory door. Just like the entrance he'd seen earlier, the lock was simple, almost too simple. These aliens were advanced in some ways, but in others, they were far behind humans. The door slid open, and Jack found himself in a long corridor. He could hear the sound of running feet approaching from both directions, but instead of fear, he felt a surge of excitement. Now the real fun would begin. As he took up a defensive position near the door, Jack smiled. These aliens had wanted to study a human warrior. Well, they were about to get a very hands-on lesson about why Earth's soldiers were the best in the galaxy. The sound of alien security forces got closer and Jack cracked his knuckles. Class was in session. The alien security forces came from both ends of the corridor, their silver armor gleaming under the pulsing red alarm lights. They carried what looked like advanced energy weapons, but Jack noticed something interesting. Their hands were shaking. These weren't warriors. They were guards who had never expected to face real combat. "Contain the human." Their leader shouted in that weird whistling language Jack could now understand. "Use stun settings only. The scientists needed alive." Jack almost laughed. They still thought of him as an it, a specimen. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was announcing their plans where he could hear them. Their third mistake: they were bunched up too close together. As the first stun blast fired, Jack was already moving. He rolled forward, surprising the aliens with his speed. Their weapons might be advanced, but their aim was terrible. Back on Earth, Jack had dodged Taliban bullets in close combat. These slow-moving energy bolts were like playing a video game on easy mode. "How is it predicting our shots?" One alien guard cried out. Jack reached the first group and showed them why humans were masters of hand-to-hand combat. He grabbed the nearest guard's weapon, twisted it up and away, a basic disarming technique taught in Marine basic training. But instead of the weapon holding firm, it snapped in half. The alien's superior technology had a major weakness. It was built as light and delicate as they were. The broken weapon sparked in his hands, giving Jack an idea. He picked up both pieces and touched them together. Energy crackled between them. "Perfect. Fall back," the alien leader screamed. "Its intelligence is beyond our combat parameters." But Jack wasn't letting them regroup. He threw one piece of the broken weapon at the ceiling lights. Sparks showered down, plunging the corridor into darkness. Only the red emergency lights remained. The aliens froze in panic. Through their terrified whispers, Jack learned something crucial. Their species evolved in bright daylight. They could barely see in dim light. But Jack, he had done night operations for years. Where did it go? An alien guard whimpered. "Right here," Jack said, his voice making them jump. He'd learned that speaking their language felt like whistling. "And I'm not an it. I'm a United States Marine." Moving through the shadows, Jack systematically disabled their weapons and used their own momentum to throw them into each other. Their light bodies worked against them. Each time they tried to rush him, he redirected their force, sending them tumbling. It was like a deadly dance, but Jack was careful not to cause serious harm. He wasn't a killer. He was a warrior with honor. That's when something unexpected happened. As he disabled the last guard's weapon, their armor started glowing with strange symbols. Jack recognized them from the laboratory. It was their written language, and somehow, just like their spoken words, he could understand it. Emergency protocol activated. The symbols read, "Initiating neural network defense." Suddenly, all the fallen guards' armor began linking together with beams of light. They were turning their defensive armor into a trap, trying to create an energy net around him. But they didn't know human history. Jack remembered reading about gladiator nets from ancient Rome. The counter was simple: find the weak point and dive through before the net closed. He spotted a gap where two beams of light were slower to connect. Using all his strength, Jack dove through the space, tucking and rolling. The energy net closed behind him with a crackle of electricity, trapping nothing but air. As he came out of the roll, Jack found himself in front of a large window looking out into space. The sight took his breath away. Earth was visible in the distance, a beautiful blue marble. But there was something else. Other ships, dozens of them, all heading toward his home planet. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was an invasion force. A new alarm started blaring, different from the others. The alien symbols floating in the air turned red. Warning. Human specimen showing increased neural activity. Beginning emergency ship-wide lockdown. Jack grinned as he watched security doors starting to close throughout the ship. They thought they were trapping him. Instead, they were giving him exactly what he needed. A map of the ship's layout displayed in glowing symbols he could now read. And there, just 3 levels up, was something marked Central Communication Hub. Jack cracked his neck and checked that all the guards were safely unconscious. If there was an invasion coming, Earth needed to know. And he was going to make sure they got the message. Thanks for the language lessons, he whispered to the unconscious aliens. Now let me show you why you never corner a Marine who has a mission. As he moved toward the maintenance shaft he'd spotted on the glowing map, Jack heard more security forces approaching. But now he had a plan. He had a destination. And most importantly, he had hope. These aliens were about to learn another lesson about humans. The more you try to trap them, the more dangerous they become. The maintenance shaft was tight, but Jack moved quickly through it. His time crawling through Afghan cave systems had prepared him well for this. The alien ship's internal structure pulsed with soft blue light, and something strange caught his eye. The walls seemed alive, shifting slightly like they were breathing. Curious, Jack touched the wall. The surface felt warm, almost organic. Then he noticed something incredible. The wall responded to his touch, revealing pathways of energy flowing through the ship like blood vessels. These aliens hadn't just built their ships, they had grown them. Intruder detected in biological maintenance network. The ship's announcement system whistled, initiating immune response. The tunnel began to constrict behind him. The living ship was trying to trap him like a human body fighting off an infection. Jack moved faster, following the energy pathways he could now see. If this ship was like a living thing, then the communication hub would need lots of energy, like a brain needing blood. He followed the largest energy stream upward, climbing through the shifting tunnels. The ship's immune system sent waves of some kind of white blood cell-like substance after him, but Jack stayed ahead of it. Finally, he reached a point where multiple energy streams converged. Pushing through the living wall, Jack emerged into the communication hub. It was nothing like he expected. Instead of computers and screens, the room was filled with what looked like giant, glowing crystals. Alien operators sat connected to these crystals through thin, silvery strands that linked to their heads. One of the operators spotted him and tried to disconnect, but Jack was faster. He grabbed the silvery strand before it could fully detach. The moment he touched it, his mind exploded with information. The strand had been meant for alien minds, but thanks to whatever they'd done to him in the lab, Jack could interface with it. Images and data flooded his consciousness. He saw the invasion plans, the fleet movements, and something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't their first attempt at invading Earth. They had been abducting humans for years, studying them, trying to find our weaknesses. But each test subject had proved too difficult to control, too resilient, too adaptable. So they had developed a new plan, a massive electromagnetic pulse that would disable Earth's technology, followed by a full invasion. Jack knew he had to warn Earth. But how? The communication system was designed for alien thoughts, not human speech. Then he remembered his training in Morse code. The basic principle was the same. Just turn the signal into a pattern. Fighting against the overwhelming flood of alien data, Jack focused on creating a simple repeating pattern in his mind. ... dash dash dash, ... Tezoas in Morse code, followed by everything he'd learned about their plans. The human is accessing the neural network. An alien operator shouted. Its mind pattern is too chaotic. It's disrupting the fleet's communication signals. Jack smiled through the pain in his head. His chaotic human thoughts were acting like a virus in their synchronized communication system. The more they tried to disconnect him, the more his warning signals spread to other ships. But he didn't stop there. While they were distracted by his Morse code message, Jack was doing something else. The aliens had made one final mistake. They had linked their entire fleet's navigation systems through this communication network. Using the same unpredictable thought patterns that were disrupting their systems, Jack started feeding false coordinates to their navigation computers. Instead of heading to their planned invasion positions around Earth, the ships would end up scattered across the solar system. Suddenly, a new alien voice boomed through the ship, deeper and more powerful than the others. "This is Fleet Commander Zixtal. Our systems are compromised. The human mental pattern is singing." Jack was indeed singing, the Marine Corps hymn, as loud as he could in his mind. The combination of Morse code, false coordinates, and the rhythmic human music was throwing their entire network into chaos. "Impossible," the fleet commander's voice crackled. "One primitive mind cannot defeat our collective consciousness." "Watch me," Jack whispered, pushing harder. He could feel blood trickling from his nose, but he didn't stop. The silvery strand was burning hot now, trying to disconnect, but he held on. Through the crystal network, he could see the other ships starting to break formation. Some were already turning away from Earth, their navigation systems thoroughly confused by his mental hijacking. The aliens in the room were panicking now, speaking so fast their whistling language became a high-pitched shriek. But above their voices, Jack heard something that made his heart soar. Human voices responding to his SOS. Earth's military had picked up his signal. As his consciousness started to fade from the strain, Jack had one last card to play. He focused all his remaining strength on sending the ship's technical data, its weaknesses, its biological nature, everything he learned. Earth would be ready for them now. The last thing he saw before the silvery strand finally broke was a new set of symbols flashing through the crystal network. Warning: human mental resistance spreading. Fleet integrity compromised. Retreat protocol initiated. Jack collapsed to the floor, his mind spinning but a smile on his face. He had done it. Earth was warned. The invasion was scattered. But as he looked at the crystals still pulsing with chaotic energy, he realized something. His mental virus was still spreading through their network. These aliens hadn't just lost their surprise advantage. They'd lost their ability to coordinate any large-scale attack. It would take them years to purge their systems of the chaos he'd introduced. As security forces finally broke into the room, Jack raised his hands in surrender, still humming the Marine Corps hymn. He wasn't done yet, not by a long shot, but now, Earth had a fighting chance, and he had a new mission. Find out what other secrets this ship was hiding. The alien guards didn't take Jack to the brig as he expected. Instead, they dragged him to a massive chamber deep within the living ship. His head still pounded from the neural interface, but what he saw made him instantly alert. The chamber was filled with hundreds of glowing pods arranged in spiral patterns along the walls, and in each pod was a human being. "Welcome to the evolution chamber," a new alien voice said. This one was different, deeper, almost human-like. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows, its skin not gray but shifting through rainbow colors like an octopus. "I am Chief Researcher Valtra. You've caused quite the impressive chaos, Marine." Jack noticed something odd. This alien's movements were different, more human. "You've been studying us for a long time, haven't you?" he asked. Valtra's skin rippled with patterns of blue and green. "Studying? No, we've been learning to become you." The alien gestured at the pods. Inside each one, Jack could see the captured humans were connected to the ship through the same kind of silvery strands he'd used in the communication hub. But these looked different, more like roots growing into the prisoners. "Your species fascinated us," Valtra continued. "Your minds are chaos, your bodies are resilient, and your emotions." The alien's skin flashed red. "They make you so strong. We thought we could harness that power. Copy it." Jack looked closer at the pods. The humans inside weren't just prisoners. They were changing. Some had slightly gray-tinted skin. Others had elongated fingers. The aliens weren't just studying humans. They were trying to hybrid themselves with human DNA. But it went wrong, didn't it? Jack said, noticing how many of the aliens now moved with almost human-like gestures. Valtra's skin turned a dark purple. Wrong. We succeeded too well. The human traits we absorbed began to change us. Some of us began to feel emotions, empathy, individual thoughts instead of collective consciousness. It's spreading through our species like a virus. Suddenly, Jack understood. That's why my chaotic thoughts disrupted your systems so badly. Part of your species is already thinking like humans. Correct, Valtra said. And you just proved what the resistance movement has been saying. Humans are too powerful to be controlled. We should be learning from them, not trying to invade them. The aliens' words were interrupted by a new alarm. The chamber's walls pulsed with red light, and Jack felt the living ship shudder. Your mental attack did more than scatter the fleet, Valtra said urgently. It awakened something in the hybrid specimens. They're breaking free of the control systems. As if on cue, the pods began to crack. The hybrid humans, still human but slightly altered by alien DNA, were waking up, and they looked angry. Release him, Valtra commanded the guards. He's our only chance now. The moment Jack was free, he ran to the nearest pod. Inside was a woman in what looked like a Russian military uniform. Her skin had a slight gray tinge, and her eyes had grown larger, but the name tag was still clear. Captain Sarah Petrov. The pod cracked open, and Sarah's eyes snapped open. They glowed slightly in the dim light. Another alien trait, Amerikansky Morpek. She said in Russian, then switched to English. American Marine. What took you so long? More pods were opening. Jack saw Chinese soldiers, British special forces, Iranian pilots, military personnel from all over Earth, all slightly changed by the alien experiments, but their human spirit was clearly intact. The ship's biological systems are in chaos, Valtra said, skin shifting through worried patterns of orange and yellow. The human DNA we introduced is fighting against the original programming. We need to evacuate the four. The ship lurched violently. On the walls, the energy pathways Jack had seen earlier were changing color, turning from blue to a deep red. The ship is evolving, Sarah said, her enhanced eyes reading the biological patterns. It's becoming a hybrid too, and it's choosing sides. Jack looked at the hundreds of enhanced humans now free from their pods, then at Valtra and the conflicted aliens. They had tried to make themselves more human. Instead, they'd given humans alien strengths while keeping their greatest power, their humanity. Well, Jack said, cracking his knuckles as the ship shuddered around them, I guess it's time for lesson number 1 in being human. He turned to address the crowd of hybrid soldiers. Lesson 1. Humans help each other. Sarah stepped up beside him, her enhanced eyes glowing with determination. Lesson 2. We never leave anyone behind, even those who were once our enemies. Valtra's skin shifted to a hopeful shade of blue as more aliens moved to join their side. The ship trembled again as its very nature transformed around them. The war for Earth wasn't going to be aliens versus humans anymore. It had become something much more interesting. A battle between those who wanted to control humanity's power and those who understood that humanity's real strength lay in its freedom, diversity, and ability to adapt. As Jack looked at his strange new army, hybrid humans with alien enhancements and aliens learning to be human, he smiled. Let's show them what humanity really means. The ship's walls pulsed with a new pattern, almost like a heartbeat, as if it too was ready to join the fight. The evolution chamber had become a revolution chamber, and the real battle was just beginning. The living ship shuddered as it continued to evolve, its corridors reshaping themselves around the strange army of hybrid humans and rebel aliens. Jack led the group through the shifting passages, his marine training adapting to the unprecedented situation. Behind him, Sarah used her enhanced vision to read the ship's biological patterns, while Valtra's color-changing skin provided light in the darker sections. The ship's core is fighting itself, Sarah said, her enlarged eyes tracking the energy flows. The original alien programming is battling against its new human DNA, just like what happened to us. Valtra's skin flickered with worried patterns. The main fleet will notice these changes soon. We need to reach the bridge before. A massive screen of living tissue suddenly grew from the wall, displaying a face that made even the aliens step back. It was the fleet commander, Zixtal, but something was wrong with him. His gray skin had patches of human-like flesh, fighting against each other like oil and water. Traitors. Zixtal's voice boomed, distorted by his partial transformation. You see what human contamination does. I tried to resist it, to stay pure, but the hybrid virus spreads. Now I am becoming human. Jack finished for him. You're feeling emotions for the first time, aren't you? That's why you're angry. That's why you're afraid. No, Zixtal roared. I will not surrender to chaos. I will purge this infection from our species, starting with this ship. The screen showed the fleet regrouping, dozens of ships turning toward them. But Jack noticed something in the commander's eyes. They were changing, becoming more human-like. An idea struck him. Sarah, Valtra, remember how my chaotic thoughts disrupted their systems? What if we all projected our emotions at once? Sarah's enhanced mind quickly understood. A feedback loop of human feelings. Through the ship's neural network, it could overload their emotional suppression systems. Valtra added, skin swirling with excited colors. But we'd need something stronger than just random thoughts. Jack turned to the hybrid soldiers. What's the one thing every soldier around the world has in common, no matter what country we're from? Love for our home, a Chinese hybrid soldier said. Fear of losing those we protect, added a British Special Forces member. Hope for peace, an Iranian pilot joined in. Jack nodded. Exactly. Valtra, can you link us all into the ship's network? Like what they did to us in the pods, but this time, we choose to connect. The alien scientist's skin turned a determined blue. Using the ship's living tissue, Valtra created connection points similar to the ones from the communication hub. One by one, the hybrid soldiers linked in, their enhanced DNA making the connection even stronger than Jack's had been alone. The effect was immediate and stunning. The ship's walls began to glow with swirling colors matching Valtra's skin, reflecting the rainbow of human emotions pouring through its neural network. Through the biological screens, they could see other ships in the fleet starting to pulse with the same colors. What? What is happening? Zixtal's voice shook as the emotional wave hit him. These feelings, they're so beautiful, finished a new voice. Another alien commander appeared on screen, but this one's transformation was further along. Fleet Commander Zixtal, let go. Stop fighting it. The humans aren't infecting us. They're freeing us. More alien ships began to change color, their living hulls responding to the emotional broadcast. The hybrid humans projected stronger, sending not just feelings but memories. Families back home, reasons to fight, dreams of peace, even their anger at being abducted. Every real, raw human emotion slammed through the fleet's connected consciousness. Zixtal's face on the screen showed the final stages of his transformation. His resistance crumbled as human emotions flooded his mind. I understand now. The chaos, the feelings, they're not weakness. They're what make us human, Jack said. And now, they're part of you too. The ship suddenly lurched again, but this time it felt different. The walls weren't just changing color. They were growing something. From the living tissue, new organs were forming. Sarah's enhanced vision identified them first. They're weapons, she said in awe. The ship is growing defensive systems, but not alien tech. They're based on human military designs. Our tactical knowledge from our memories. Jack watched in amazement as the ship transformed their combined military experience into biological weapons. Gun-like growths that fired concentrated energy, armor plates inspired by tank designs, even communication systems that mixed alien telepathy with human radio waves. The hybrid fleet hung in space, transformed by the power of human emotion and experience. They weren't alien ships anymore, and they weren't human vessels. They were something entirely new, a perfect blend of both species' strengths. But before they could celebrate, a massive shadow fell over the ship. Through the biological screens, they saw it, the real invasion fleet, hundreds of untransformed alien ships, their crews still pure, still emotionless, still bent on conquering Earth. "Well," Jack said, looking at his army of hybrid humans and transformed aliens, "I guess it's time for the final lesson about humanity." He turned to face them all. "When we fight to protect our home, we don't hold anything back." The ship's new weapons pulsed with power as the invasion fleet approached. The final battle for Earth's future was about to begin, and humanity had never been stronger or stranger. The pure alien fleet approached like a dark storm cloud, thousands of ships strong. But Jack Chen and his hybrid army weren't worried. They were too busy discovering that their transformation had one more surprising effect. Their minds could now link together like a human version of the alien hive mind, but with a crucial difference. "We're not losing our individuality," Sarah explained, her enhanced eyes glowing. "We're becoming something new, a network of independent minds choosing to work together." Through their connection, Jack felt every soldier's unique abilities merging. The Chinese Special Forces martial arts knowledge blended with British RAF flight skills. Iranian drone expertise merged with Russian cyber warfare techniques. Every military skill on Earth was becoming part of their shared consciousness. The ship itself joined their link, its newly grown weapons adapting to their combined knowledge. The biological gun turrets evolved triggers that responded to thought. The armor plates developed regenerative properties based on human healing. Even the ship's corridors transformed into something like a human circulatory system, allowing rapid deployment to any section. "They're charging their main weapons," Valtra announced, skin flashing morning colors. "Traditional fleet tactics. They'll try to overwhelm us with numbers." Jack smiled. "That's their mistake. They're still thinking like a hive mind. But we're thinking like humans. Creative, unpredictable, and really good at improvising." Through their neural link, Jack shared his plan. It was crazy, reckless, and absolutely human. Everyone, hybrid soldiers and transformed aliens alike, grinned. The pure alien fleet opened fire, expecting their targets to either dodge or return fire. Instead, the hybrid ships did something unprecedented. They began to merge. The living vessels grew tendrils of biological matter, linking together like cells forming a larger organism. "Impossible," came the pure aliens' transmission. "Ships cannot combine." "Human rule number one," Jack broadcast back. "Nothing is impossible." The hybrid ships completed their merger just as the enemy's energy weapons struck. But instead of causing damage, the biological hull absorbed the energy. Sarah's enhanced vision saw what was happening. "The ship is converting their weapon energy," she said excitedly, "just like human cells convert food into energy." Valtra's skin rippled with understanding, and like our color-changing skin adapts to light, we're becoming a living solar converter. The combined hybrid vessel now dwarfed the pure alien fleet. Its surface rippled with absorbed energy, glowing brighter and brighter. Inside, the hybrid crew worked in perfect synchronization, each person's unique skills contributing to their defense. But the pure aliens had one last weapon, a massive cannon designed to destroy planets. As it charged up, targeting Earth in a final desperate attack, Jack unveiled the last part of his plan. "Remember how human DNA changed your ships?" he broadcast to the enemy fleet. "Well, we just uploaded a new strain. Call it Humanity 2.0. The hybrid ship released the stored energy in a wave of golden light. But this wasn't a weapon. It was carrying modified human DNA, enhanced by their combined evolution. As it struck the pure alien fleet, their living ships began to transform. "No," the enemy commander cried. "Our ships are." Laughing, he was right. The pure alien vessels, touched by the hybrid DNA, were experiencing emotion for the first time. Their rigid structures began to soften and change. The planet-killing cannon transformed into a communication array, the alien equivalent of reaching out to shake hands. Through their neural network, Jack addressed both fleets. That's humanity's real strength. We don't just adapt. We help others adapt too. We don't just survive. We teach others how to live. And we don't just fight. We transform our enemies into friends. The space around Earth filled with light as ship after ship transformed, their crews experiencing the first rushes of emotion, of individual thought, of human chaos, and alien order working in perfect harmony. Sarah looked at the biological displays showing Earth's military forces arriving, then at the transformed alien fleet waiting peacefully. "So," she said with a smile, "what do we tell them down there?" Jack thought about how to explain everything. The abduction, the transformation, the battle that ended not with destruction but with evolution. He looked at his hybrid crew, at Valtra's rainbow skin patterns, at the living ship that had become their home, and at the vast fleet that had changed from invader to ally. "We tell them the truth," he said. "Humanity just got an upgrade. The galaxy got a little smaller, and," he grinned, "the Marine Corps officially has its first interstellar division." The ship's walls pulsed with happy colors as laughter, both human and alien, filled the neural network. They had all learned the final lesson about humanity. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy, but helping them become something better. Far below, Earth turned peacefully, unaware that its first contact with alien life hadn't ended in war or conquest, but in the most human outcome of all: adaptation, cooperation, and change. Jack looked at his hybrid crew and newly transformed alien allies. "So," he said with a grin, "who's ready to help me explain this to the Pentagon?" The united laughter that answered him was both human and alien, individual and collective, chaotic and harmonious, just like they had become.